The era of high-temperature apocalypse has arrived. My husband and son hoarded supplies with my money, feasted heartily, and lived a carefree life, but I humbly tried to please them and only got a bowl of porridge in return. My son disliked that I wasn't as beautiful as before marriage. He thought I was like a nagging housekeeper and found me disgusting. I endured the heat to cook. But my mother-in-law asked me to take a bath with my son's foot-washing water in order to please her grandson. My mother-in-law locked me out of the door. Under the high temperature, I had nowhere to hide, and finally, I was roasted to death by the high temperature. Given a second chance at life, I decided to abandon this unbearable family. 1. Get out. What does it have to do with you that I recharge my game account? You're just a nagging housekeeper. I don't know why my dad married you in the first place. He must have been blind. Hunter sat on the gaming chair with his headphones hanging around his neck, staring at me angrily and cursing. My heart ached, and tears welled up in my eyes uncontrollably. I never expected my son to think of me like this. Hunter had recharged over 100,000 yuan in the game in total, and he even sent 52,000 yuan to his online dating partner. I only found out today when I checked the balance of my bank card that the 5 million yuan in my card had been quietly transferred away. Can you stop being an eyesore here? All you do is cry. Are you mourning at a grave? So unlucky. Hunter impatiently pushed me out of the room. I was pushed to the ground, but he didn't care at all. The next second, Hunter's voice of showing off came from the room. Baby, isn't the new equipment I bought cool? Call me brother, and I'll give you one. What do you mean it's expensive? It's only a few tens of thousands each. Brother has plenty of money. I endured the pain and stood up. Leaning against the wall, my husband and mother-in-law were sitting on the sofa in the living room, ignoring everything that had just happened. With a sobbing voice, I complained to my husband, "Did you give Hunter the money to recharge his game account? How could you spend my money recklessly? Don't you know that?" My mother-in-law stood up and interrupted me, her tone impatient. "What do you mean your money? That's my son's money. Don't try to take credit for it. What's wrong with recharging my dear grandson's game account? He's happy and willing. Go and cook your meal. Don't bother my son and my dear grandson here." Hugo was watching a funny skit on TV and laughed out loud, not even giving me a glance. It seemed that I was the one being unreasonable in this family. When the high-temperature apocalypse came, everyone stayed indoors, and funds were in short supply. But a few days ago, my husband took my mother-in-law and son out to buy a lot of supplies. And the food at home was piled high. I thought it was the money Hugo earned himself, but I never imagined that he knew the password of my bank card, stole my bank card, and transferred all the money in it. I tightly held the bank card with a zero balance and walked towards the kitchen to cook, feeling cold-hearted. The kitchen was even hotter under the high temperature. My clothes were already soaked through just after I finished frying 2 dishes. My mother-in-law's urging voice came through the glass door. "Can you cook a bit faster? If my dear grandson goes hungry, I'll make you pay." Sweat covered my entire face. I raised my hand to wipe the sweat and quicken my cooking speed. After cooking, I set the tableware and called Hunter 5 times before he came out to eat. He looked at me with resentment. "You keep urging me. So annoying." My mother-in-law coaxed him. "My dear grandson, don't bother with this woman. Eat more." Hunter refused. Covering his nose and staying away from me, he looked at me as if I were something dirty. "What's that smell? Why are you all wet? So dirty. Stay away from me. A dirty woman is not allowed to eat next to me." I was stunned and looked down at my wet clothes, which were soaked with sweat while I was cooking. I never expected that Hunter not only didn't feel sorry for me cooking in the hot kitchen but also thought I was dirty. With a numb heart, I put down the tableware and wanted to take a shower. As soon as I reached the door of the bathroom, I was stopped by my mother-in-law. "Don't even think about wasting water on a shower. Water resources are in short supply now, and the water bill is incredibly expensive. Just wash with that bucket of water." My mother-in-law pointed at the half-full bucket of water as if she were doing me a favor. That was the foot-washing water left by Hunter yesterday, which was supposed to be used to flush the toilet. I felt embarrassed and said, "Mom, this water." My mother-in-law interrupted me. "What? Do you look down on my grandson's foot-washing water? My grandson's feet are clean." My face turned pale. Hunter had foot odor, and it had been treated for a long time. My mother-in-law couldn't possibly not know that. When I was in a dilemma, Hunter's muffled voice with a mouthful of food came from the living room. "Grandma, if the dirty woman refuses to wash, just throw her out. It stinks so much. I can't enjoy my meal anymore." I widened my eyes in disbelief. I couldn't believe that these were the words that my child, whom I carried in my womb for 10 months, would say. I refused to comply even at the risk of my life. I would never take a bath with Hunter's foot-washing water, seeing that I didn't appreciate her kindness. My mother-in-law grabbed my hair and dragged me out of the door and locked it. I pleaded desperately outside. begging them to let me in. The temperature outside had reached 70 degrees Celsius. After cooking for over an hour, I was already exhausted. When I thought I was about to die, the door opened. My mother-in-law brought a bowl of porridge and put it in front of me. "Eat it. My dear grandson won't let you in. Just stay outside. You can come in when he calms down." My mother-in-law quickly closed the door, afraid that I would barge in. She didn't know that I had no strength left. After being exposed to the sun for an hour, I was already dehydrated. The porridge was right in front of me, but I no longer had the strength to get up. When I opened my eyes again, I was back a week before the apocalypse arrived. In my ears was the sound of Hunter swearing while playing games. I couldn't believe it and pinched myself. It hurt, thinking of all that happened in my previous life. I vowed never to make the same mistakes again. Hunter had been spoiled by my mother-in-law. Whenever I didn't let him do something, my mother-in-law would always muddle through and let him do it. Now I've thought it through. I've had enough of this ungrateful wretch of a son and this family that only wants me to give without any return. I glanced at Hunter, who was engrossed in playing games in the room, and went back to my room to change into a decent set of clothes. I found the bank card on the top of the cabinet, went to the bank, and confirmed that my balance was still there. I cried tears of joy. A strange woman at the entrance of the bank handed me a piece of paper to wipe my tears. I smiled through my tears, nodded, and thanked her. Even a stranger could show kindness to me, but my husband, with whom I had shared a bed for 18 years, and my child, whom I gave birth to after 10 months of pregnancy, couldn't. I changed the password of my bank card. With 5 million yuan in my pocket, I didn't want to go back to that suffocating home anymore. I took out my phone and flipped through it, but I didn't know where to go. A figure flashed through my mind, and I tremblingly clicked on that person's contact information. I was afraid that I would get the message that I had been blocked. The phone rang for 2 seconds and then was answered. The female voice on the other side was hoarse from just waking up. "Hello," hearing the familiar voice. I couldn't hold back my tears any longer and cried out, "Kendall." 10 minutes later, I saw Kendall, whose hair was messy and who even wore her slippers on the wrong feet, but she still rushed towards me without hesitation. We hugged each other and cried together, ignoring the curious looks of others. We finally laughed after crying ourselves out. Kendall was my best friend at that time. We had a falling out because she strongly opposed my marriage to Hugo. Since then, we hadn't seen each other for 18 years, and she didn't even show up at Hunter's full moon banquet. I thought we would never see each other again in this life, but I never expected that she had secretly removed my block long ago and was waiting for me to make up. Kendall took me to her villa. Only then did I know that she was still unmarried and living a carefree life alone. She poured me a glass of water. I sat on the sofa and thought for a long time. Kendall and I hadn't seen each other for a long time, and I wasn't sure if she would trust me. "Laurel, just tell me if you have something to say. There shouldn't be any estrangement between us. I've always been your support." My eyes were red. I told her about my experiences in the previous life and explained to her how horrible the high-temperature apocalypse would be. "What? Damn it, the Hugo family are all beasts. I told you Hugo wasn't a good person, and his mother isn't either. You just didn't believe me." Kendall jumped up, grabbed the baseball bat by the coffee table, and wanted to go out to settle the score with Hugo. I quickly held her back. "Kendall, this isn't the time to think about them. The most urgent thing is to prepare for the high-temperature apocalypse." Kendall still wasn't satisfied and cursed. "That damned Hugo family, they deserve to die 10,000 times over." I just nodded obediently. The Hugo family would die. I was sure of it. Kendall liked reading novels and had read a lot of zombie apocalypse novels. After the initial surprise, she quickly accepted the fact that the upcoming high-temperature apocalypse would happen. "Laurel, I trust you. I have quite a lot of savings. As long as you ask, I can take it out." Thinking of Hugo's act of transferring my property in the previous life and looking at Kendall in front of me, who is eager to give me her money, tears welled up in my eyes again. There was no time for sentimentality. "Kendall," and I tidied up and immediately set off for the largest supermarket in the area. Kendall and I took a round around the supermarket, each pushing 2 shopping carts. In the end, we filled 3 cargo vans with various supplies. We even thought of buying medicines. Because we bought so much, it alerted the supermarket manager. Kendall and I looked at each other and agreed on our story, saying that we were from a family-owned company and were going to hold an event recently. Fortunately, the manager didn't ask any more questions. After buying and paying for everything, I was already exhausted and just wanted to take Kendall home. Kendall stopped me and took me to the clothing city on the 2nd floor. I thought she was going to buy clothes, but unexpectedly, she took several sets of clothes and stuffed them into my arms, asking me to go and change. "You can never go back to Hugo's home. Look at how they've tortured you." After changing my clothes, I stood in front of the full-length mirror. I didn't react at first. I couldn't believe I could look so good. There were tears in Kendall's eyes as she praised me. "This is the you I know. the shining laurel. I forgot how many years it had been since I last wore new clothes. I had been thrifty and economized just for that family, but in the end, I found out that I was a joke. I also forgot that before marriage, I was a confident, fashionable, and beauty-loving person. I excitedly hugged Kendall and shed my third tear since being reborn. I vowed that this would be my last time. As for that home filled with unbearable memories, I would never set foot in it again in my life. We went on a crazy shopping spree for a lot of clothes, and in the end, Kendall paid for them. Don't fight me on this. I'm here to celebrate your new beginning. I nodded. I was grateful that God had given me this chance, and I was glad that I still had Kendall. When we got home, Kendall cleared out a room specifically for storing food. Looking at the room filled with food, I felt extremely at ease. Kendall ordered takeout, which she called eat a few more meals while we can still order takeout. Since getting married, I rarely ordered takeout. I always cooked by myself, both to save money and for the health of my family. Looking at the table full of fried chicken and beer, I thought, to hell with saving money and to hell with being healthy. After taking a sip of beer, the phone on the table rang urgently. It was Hugo. I answered the phone, and Hugo's angry voice came through. Damn it, Laurel, where the hell are you at this hour? Don't you know it's dinner time? Hugo questioned me if I was fooling around with other men outside. I sneered. Hugo had kept several mistresses outside. I pretended not to know. But I just didn't want to ruin the family atmosphere because of these things. It was a pity that the home I had painstakingly maintained was already in ruins. They were all demons who fed on human blood, and only I treated them as treasures and loved them. People always think of others in the same way as they are. It's really disgusting. I slowly took a bite of the fried chicken. Dinner time. So what? I'm eating right now. Hugo didn't expect that I would be eating outside. You good-for-nothing woman, you're eating outside, but what about us? Do you want to starve us to death? If you have the guts, don't come home, otherwise, I'll beat you to death, you bitch. For Hugo was so angry on the other end that he was jumping up and down. The phone was on speakerphone, and Kendall almost couldn't hold back from swearing. I quickly covered her mouth. Through the phone, I heard Hunter's voice. Dad, why do you want her to come back? Just let her die outside. Don't let her come back and disgust us. I saw a delicious takeout place. It must be better than what the ugly woman cooks. Hearing this, I said in a relaxed tone, it wasn't worth getting angry for such idiots. Hunter, if the takeout is delicious, eat more. Don't worry, you'll never eat the food I cook in this life. In the high-temperature apocalypse, it would be a problem just to survive. How could there be anyone delivering takeout? I forgot again that none of them in that family could cook. Maybe my mother-in-law could, but she could only cook big pots of messy stew, and it tasted bad. Without me, that family would have starved to death long ago. I curled my lips and said in a sarcastic tone, Hugo, do you have no hands or feet? Are you still shamelessly waiting for me to come home and cook for you? Isn't it enough that I've been your free nanny for so many years? As for the home you mentioned, it's your home, not mine. I won't go back. You'd better take care of yourselves. I said all this in one breath, not giving Hugo a chance to reply, and blocked and deleted his contact information. The high temperature was about to arrive. Without money, Hugo and his family wouldn't be able to survive for long. Kendall drank beer and cursed the Hugo family for not being human. I agreed with her words. We ate and chatted, laughing heartily. In an instant, it was like we had gone back to those carefree years. Kendall was 36 years old but looked like she was 26 because she wasn't married. Through her confidence, I caught a glimpse of the years I had lost. Kendall and I didn't idle around in the following days. With her rich experience from reading novels, she hired workers to reinforce all the doors and windows of the house, installed heat insulation film, and also installed an electrical conduction system. I bought a lot of solar panels and installed air conditioners in every part of the house. With solar energy in the high-temperature environment, electricity would be the least of our concerns. By the time we finished all the preparations, there was only one day left before the high-temperature apocalypse arrived. Tomorrow would be the day. In my previous life, at this time, the official authorities had predicted the apocalypse in advance and issued a notice, asking residents to hoard supplies on the grounds of high temperatures. Hugo had stolen my cart and hoarded a lot of supplies. In this life, without the money, I was curious to see what they would do. Suddenly, I had an idea. I picked up my phone, opened the home surveillance. The surveillance was installed at Hugo's request when there were thieves around before. He was afraid of property losses at home. But now it had become my powerful tool. I had protected the surveillance system well, and it quickly connected to the live feed of my home. On the other end of the screen, they were in a complete mess, running around in a frenzy. They didn't even sit on the living room sofa anymore. 3 generations of the family, grandparents, parents, and children, were pacing around the sofa. That damned woman took the bank card. I should have beaten her to death. Hunter had a fierce expression on his face. Dad, what should we do now that we don't have any money? The authorities have said that we need to stockpile supplies. No, a pack of instant noodles costs 100 yuan outside. It's all that woman's fault. Why does she have the right to take the money away? Dad, let's call the police. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Calling the police. I couldn't believe that these were the words that an 18-year-old adult could say. The 5 million yuan in the card was my prenuptial property, left to me by my mother before she passed away. It was not part of the family property at all. Hugo didn't know about this sum of money originally, but he read my notes, found out the location of the card and the password. Before he could transfer my property, I took action one step ahead of him. 5. Kendall sat down next to me while applying a facial mask. She semi-forcefully put a mask on me too, these days. Kendall had been making sure I applied a facial mask every day. A woman's face is the capital of her confidence. She watched the phone screen with me. On the other side of the screen, my mother-in-law, tired from pacing around, sat on the sofa, while Hugo was making a call to a loan shark because no one would lend money through regular loans now. Hugo's tone was irritable. It seemed he hadn't managed to borrow any money. Damn it, they used to hound me to take out loans on a daily basis. But now they're avoiding me like the plague. Hunter wasn't any better. He ran his fingers through his hair, on the verge of losing his temper. Where the hell is that bitch hiding? It's all her fault that our family is in this mess now. My mother-in-law chimed in and cursed along. That slut, she ran away with the money. How could there be such a bitch in our family? Oh, it's making my chest hurt with anger. Hunter immediately put on an innocent look and leaned close to his grandmother. Grandma, don't you have a gold bracelet? I heard it's quite valuable. There was nothing but greed in his eyes. My mother-in-law quickly covered her wrist. She had always been greedy for money. No, my dear grandson, Grandma's bracelet isn't worth much. Hunter glanced at Hugo, and the two of them exchanged a look. Ignoring the old woman's cries, they forcefully took the gold bracelet off her wrist. Dear grandson, this is the only gold bracelet Grandma has. Grandma will leave it to you in the future. Please give it back to Grandma now. Hunter waved the gold bracelet in his hand, looking very proud. Grandma, it will be mine in the future. Consider it as an early gift to me. I'll buy you 500 caddies of gold in the future. My mother-in-law stopped crying and scolding immediately and smiled while praising Hunter. I knew my dear grandson would achieve great things in the future. Kendall and I exchanged a look, and we laughed out loud while wearing our facial masks. Hunter's PUA skills were so low that only the old woman would believe them. Kendall took off her facial mask and laughed so hard that she couldn't stop. 500 caddies of gold. My God. Ha ha ha. I gently patted her back to help her catch her breath. I knew that my mother-in-law had no bottom line when it came to indulging Hunter. Hunter had been spoiled into the wayward and unreasonable person he was now. All because of my mother-in-law's indulgence. Hunter didn't get into university. Not even a junior college. He had been living at home idly. After he turned 18, I suggested that he go and find a job. Unexpectedly, my mother-in-law scolded me for being heartless, saying that I was making her dear grandson suffer. Since then, I never made that suggestion again. Hunter had been living like a spoiled young master at home, with everything served on a silver platter. Since he was spoiled by my mother-in-law, she had to bear the consequences herself. In fact, I had forgotten when exactly Hunter started to become so unreasonable. Maybe he had been like this since he was a child and had never shown me any kindness. I was relieved to see that Hugo's family was in such a mess now. My mother-in-law's gold bracelet didn't weigh much at all, and with prices rising rapidly, even if they sold it, they couldn't buy much. Kendall and I went to the basement of the villa. The basement was a medium-sized KTV. I couldn't help but exclaim, Kendall, you've really earned a lot these years. Kendall smiled proudly. I didn't lie to you, did I? I said I would get rich and take care of you, and now I've finally achieved it. I've finally been able to live a life where I'm with you every day. Don't worry, I will never let anyone from Hugo's family bully you again. If they want to bully you, they have to step over my dead body first. I had always felt guilty towards Kendall since we reunited because she was really too good to me, so good that I wasn't sure if I deserved it. Perhaps she noticed my momentary low mood. Kendall held the microphone and spoke each word solemnly, as if making a solemn declaration. Laurel, you are my best friend, you are in this life, and we will still be best friends in the next life. I don't regret meeting you at all. You've suffered a lot after you got married. I hope you will never suffer again in this life or the next, not even suffering. From now on, you will definitely live a sweet life. With a smile on her lips, in the dimly lit private room, she was like a beam of light, illuminating me without hesitation. 6. Kendall and I had a wild time until the early morning. We counted down to the arrival of the apocalypse. Before going to bed, I turned on the surveillance. The lights were still on in the early morning. As expected, Hugo's family didn't disappoint me. My mother-in-law's 10-gram gold bracelet couldn't sell for much money at all. Hugo went out happily but came back dejected. The prices outside had risen to an immeasurable level, and no one wanted to buy his gold. Since he didn't get any money from selling it, he threw the gold bracelet back to my mother-in-law. Gold is useless now, Mom. Why didn't you sell it earlier and stockpile some food? What's the point of buying gold? Those people are all so practical. They only want food and don't care about money. Now that we can't sell it, we're just waiting to starve to death. My mother-in-law knew she was in the wrong. She never expected that the gold bracelet she was so proud of had now become worthless trash. As soon as Hunter heard that they might starve to death, he panicked. I don't want to starve to death. Grandma, save me. My mother-in-law wiped his tears lovingly. Okay, Grandma won't let my dear baby starve to death. Don't worry. Just as I was wondering what else my mother-in-law could do, her voice came through the surveillance, sinister and cunning. Call your slutty mother. She must have bought a lot of things with the money. Show some weakness. She'll soften her heart and come back with the food. Hunter had his own pride and naturally refused to show weakness. He cried and made a scene. My mother-in-law coaxed him on the side. Oh, my dear grandson, you've really been wronged. When that slut comes back, we'll lock her in the room, take the money and food from her, and then torture her to death. Kendall's face was covered in black lines, and she looked so angry that she wanted to kill someone. On the other side of the screen, my mother-in-law was afraid that someone might overhear, so she lowered her voice and whispered something in Hunter's ear. In less than a minute, the surveillance video was forcefully cut off by the phone screen. As expected, it was Hunter. I leaned against the headboard and slowly answered the phone just as it was about to hang up. As soon as I answered, Hunter's sweet voice came through. Mom, when are you coming home? I miss you. I was so disgusted that I got goosebumps all over. I immediately realized that this must be the so-called showing weakness that my mother-in-law had mentioned. I glanced at Kendall and said in a cold tone, "What do you want?" Hunter had never been treated so coldly before. He almost blurted out a curse word, but my mother-in-law covered his mouth just as the sound leaked out. My mother-in-law's voice came through faintly. Bear with it. Dear grandson, we'll make her pay later. I raised my eyebrows. I knew that their family couldn't come up with anything good. I interrupted Hunter before he could say something to disgust me. Hunter, don't you think that being humble will make me come home? Save it, don't try to disgust me, and Grandma, please keep your plotting a little quieter next time. I'm not deaf, and Hugo, who's been silent over there, you not only lack the responsibility of a man, but you don't even deserve to be called a man. I kept talking and scolded each of them one by one. They didn't expect me to be so assertive because I had always played the role of a good mother, a good wife, and a good daughter-in-law. Hunter was the first to react. He cursed. I didn't want to listen, so I hung up the phone, blocked and deleted his contact information, and pulled out the phone card and threw it away. Even if they wanted to find me, it would be impossible for them to do so. 7. On the third day after the apocalypse arrived, the whole city was shrouded in heat. The temperature outside had risen from the usual 30 degrees Celsius to 70 degrees Celsius. No one went out anymore. They were just barely surviving on the supplies they had stockpiled. The internet was still working. Weibo was filled with the complaints of netizens. The temperature rises by 40 degrees a day. My God, I'm almost dying of heat. I went out but didn't manage to buy any food. I almost got sunburned to death. Is this really the end of the world? An auction painting worth 10 million yuan for a pack of rice. Is there anyone willing to trade? Give it up. The person above. Now everyone only wants food. Who cares about these worldly possessions? Oh my God. My neighbor went out to look for food and hasn't come back for a day. Could she have already? Kendall and I opened a bottle of soda, filled it with ice cubes, and turned all the air conditioners in the house to the lowest setting. The cold cola sliding down my throat made me feel so refreshed. Kendall was scrolling through Weibo. She hugged me gleefully and said, "Fortunately, you came to me, otherwise I'd probably have a hard time stockpiling food like everyone else." I didn't really believe that. Kendall had always liked to stockpile supplies. Even without me, she could live well. Just that her equipment might not be as complete. The large TV screen was showing the surveillance video of Hugo's family in real time. It was only the third day, and they had already run out of food and supplies. Even drinking water had become a luxury. I don't know how much time had passed, but cries erupted from Hugo's family. To be precise, it was my mother-in-law's cries. "You can't do this, my dear grandson. The temperature outside is so high. Grandma will die if I go out." It turned out that Hugo and Hunter were so hungry that they wanted to go out to find something to eat, but neither of them was willing to go out. So they set their sights on my mother-in-law. Kendall even stopped playing her game and put it aside. Ignoring the possibility of being reported, she focused on watching the scene, seeing how serious she was. I fed her a piece of watermelon. In the video, Hugo had a fierce look in his eyes, but his tone was very soft. He had always valued his own life. "Mom, didn't you say you would do anything for me? Now we're about to starve to death. It's most suitable for you to go and find food." People will surely show mercy to you because you're an old woman." As he spoke, he pushed my mother-in-law towards the door. The old woman clung to the door and cried loudly, "You unfilial son, you want to kill me. Dear grandson, save Grandma. Grandma will die if I go out." My mother-in-law tried to grab Hunter, who was standing nearby, but he disgustedly dodged her. "Grandma, if you don't go, I'll be the one to die." My mother-in-law was locked outside the door. She pounded on the door desperately, crying and shouting, but Hugo and Hunter sat in the living room without showing any reaction. Seeing this scene, I felt deeply touched. This was how I died in my previous life. They were just as cold and heartless as they were today, treating my life like a plaything. Today, it was my mother-in-law's turn, and I couldn't help but feel satisfied. They would all die. And my mother-in-law was just the first one. Kendall couldn't stop laughing. She had only ever read about such scenes of infighting in novels. Now that she was seeing it in real life, she was truly amazed. Thank goodness. When my boyfriend proposed to me back then, I kicked him out right away. What's the point of getting married? You never know if the other person is a good or bad person after marriage. Yes, I had already been hurt all over on the road of marriage. Love was the most untested thing. Kendall had always been more clear-headed than me. Kendall hadn't dated anyone since she turned 30. She ate alone, slept alone, and did everything alone. She didn't want to be trapped by a family. She wanted to be a free person. She had always been firm in her beliefs. 8. My mother-in-law was locked outside. When she got tired of knocking on the door, there was no sound anymore. I thought she should have gone to look for food. Inside the house, Hugo took out a piece of bread. It was the last food they had stored away. He shared the bread with Hunter. After eating the bread, Hunter put on his headphones and deliberately made his voice low. He spoke in a bubble voice to his phone. "Baby, do you have any food at home? We didn't manage to stockpile enough. Could you give me some?" On the other end was the girl to whom Hunter had sent a red packet of 52,000 yuan in his previous life. I don't know what the girl said. I guessed she refused him. Hunter couldn't pretend with his affected deep bubble voice anymore. He angrily picked up the vase on the coffee table and threw it at the TV. The vase shattered into pieces instantly, and the TV also fell down. "Damn bitch. What do you mean you don't have enough food at home? If you don't want to give it, just say so." Hunter, don't really need your measly amount of food." Hunter cursed at the other end of the phone for a full half an hour. Starting from saying that he didn't care about that bit of food to finally begging the other person to send him some when he got hungry, but he didn't succeed. The other person hung up the phone and blocked him. When Hugo came out of the room and saw that his beloved TV had been smashed, he was furious. He picked up a broom and started beating Hunter violently. I sneered at the TV. Their relationship was just like that. They were all selfish people, Kendall and I played a few rounds of a game. This game used to be our favorite. I hadn't played it since I got married, but Kendall had been playing it all the time and had a very high level. Kendall had taken me to play more than a dozen rounds in the past 2 days, and I was gradually getting back into the swing of things. Playing the game while watching the miserable situation of Hugo's family was double the fun. After another round of the game ended, I just happened to see Hugo and Hunter going out together. Hunter's face was covered in injuries from Hugo's beating, and he looked a bit ridiculous. "Dad, are we really going out? It's so hot outside. The old woman hasn't come back for 3 hours. Could she be dead?" Hugo told him to stop talking nonsense. If he didn't go out to find food, he would starve to death too. He hadn't eaten for a day, and with the hot weather, he couldn't hold on any longer. Kendall quit the game and asked in confusion, "Are they going out to die?" "Didn't that old woman go out already?" I shook my head. They know that the old woman has little chance of finding food. In fact, they don't have any hope for her at all. Kendall was even more confused. Then why did they let her go out? I took a sip of the soda and said, "Because they just want her to die so she won't compete with them for the bread." Kendall suddenly thought the world was too terrifying. A son and a grandson had driven the old woman out of the house just for a piece of bread. Hunter hesitated for a long time before going out, and finally, he was dragged out by Hugo. The surveillance screen returned to calm. For the next week, I didn't see any sign of them. I wasn't sure if they had died outside, but not seeing them was good news for me. It had been nearly half a month since the high-temperature apocalypse began. Instead of decreasing, the temperature outside kept rising. The wires were burned out by the sun, causing widespread power outages in the city. During this period, countless people died from heatstroke due to the high temperature. Many others were even sunburned to death while going out to find food. It had become a common sight to see a corpse every 5 steps on the street. 9. There was still a lot of food at home. I cooked for Kendall in different ways every day, and I always received her praise. "God, Laurel, it's such a pity that you're not a chef." I laughed and said it wasn't that exaggerated. She grabbed my hand and said seriously, "If you were a chef, I would definitely visit you every day, but luckily, I can eat the food you cook every day now." I'm really the happiest person in the world. Kendall smiled with a look of happiness on her face. I was also doted on when I was growing up. My mother never let me cook. After marrying Hugo, I tried hard to learn how to cook in order to please his family. From burning the eggs at the beginning to being able to cook a large table of dishes for the family reunion dinner during the spring festival all by myself. After I finished cooking and cleaning up the oil stains in the kitchen, there were only leftovers on the table. I thought I was happy too. From now on, I would only cook delicious food for Kendall. The days of staying indoors were indeed a bit boring, but with Kendall around, they became interesting. I was happy no matter what I did with her. We could talk all night until dawn without having to worry about anything. I had already forgotten about Hugo's family. In my heart, I had already defaulted that they couldn't survive. 2 days later, after Kendall and I had lunch, I put the dishes into the dishwasher, and Kendall was cutting fruits. Suddenly, she exclaimed and ran towards me. I thought she had cut her hand. I checked her in a hurry. I only felt relieved when I didn't see any wounds. Come on, I'm not hurt. Look at these two people on my phone. Aren't they Hugo and Hunter? I looked at her phone. The people in the video were indeed Hugo and Hunter. I was a bit surprised. They were actually still alive. Their vitality was even stronger than that of a cockroach. The title of the video was "Caught Two People Stealing Food and Broke Their Legs." Everyone, did I do the right thing? In the video, Hugo and Hunter were tied up together with hemp ropes, perhaps due to the pain. Their faces were twisted and they were moaning. Their faces were pale due to lack of water and food. Their lips were completely peeled and turned outward, and their eyes were sunken in. They were almost unrecognizable from being so thin, but they still stared fiercely at the blogger. The blogger should be from a wealthy family. There were several bodyguards in black suits and sunglasses around him. It was probably the blogger and his bodyguards who beat Hugo and his son. After watching the video, I clicked on the comments section. I thought the comments would be a flood of scolding towards the blogger. After all, stealing didn't deserve such punishment, but to my surprise, it was the opposite. The comment section was filled with scolding, all of which were directed at Hugo and his son. In this kind of weather, stealing someone else's food is like cutting off their way of life. I support the blogger. The use of the word "it" is great. I had my food stolen yesterday too. Half of my limited stockpile was stolen. They're really goddamn beasts. The blogger is too kind. I despise people like this. You can't steal food no matter what you steal. The two people in the video look so scary. They have a super masculine feel. Anyway, they don't look like good people. There were only more than 100 comments in the comments section, due to the power outage caused by the high temperature. Most people no longer had the right to go online. I scrolled to the bottom of the comments, and there were only a few comments speaking up for Hugo and his son. As expected, those few netizens' comments were drowned out. Although Hugo and his son weren't dead, they didn't seem to be in a good condition either. The video was from the same city yesterday. I clicked on the blogger's homepage. The blogger had updated a video. In the latest video, Hugo and his son were thrown on the asphalt road, and the ropes on their bodies had been untied. I don't want to cause a death, so I'll just leave them here. Whether they live or die is up to God. After being untied, Hugo and his son dragged their broken legs and crawled on the road, trying to leave. What's wrong with recharging my dear grandson's game account? He's happy and willing. Go and cook your meal. Don't bother my son and my dear grandson here. In the comment section, people praised the blogger for being kind and generous. I held back my laughter and exited the video. Then returned the phone to Kendall. They deserved what they got, since they had been punished by others. I didn't need to get my hands dirty. The miserable situation of the two of them was in my mind. I was never someone who liked to watch others' misfortunes. Even when I often went to the vegetable market and met a disabled person begging, I would put the remaining change in his basin. I felt sorry for all the poor people in the world who were going through hardships. But I didn't feel sorry for Hugo's family at all. This was what they deserved. It was just karma. No one could withstand the temperature of the asphalt road, not to mention that their legs were broken. In less than 10 minutes, they would be baked into mummies by the outside temperature. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, the blogger replied in the comment section, "The temperature outside is too high. I just sent someone to check, and they're dead. This matter is over now." Kendall opened a bottle of champagne to celebrate for me. "Congratulations. From now on, you're a free person. Thank you." I clinked my glass with hers. After drinking the chilled champagne, I felt extremely carefree. There was no longer Hugo's family in my world, and I no longer needed to bury the hatred from my previous life. From now on, I'm just myself, not a wife, not a mother, not a daughter-in-law. I am Laurel. The high-temperature apocalypse was still going on. I didn't know how long it would last in the future. In my previous life, I didn't live to see the end of the high temperature. However, I was sure that our supplies would definitely last until the end of the high temperature apocalypse. Our future was extremely bright. Story 2. After the apocalypse began, I turned into a conscious zombie. That day, while chasing ordinary humans for fun, I suddenly heard a familiar voice that made me shiver. Mia, stand up straight. I turned around and there was Mrs. Sophia, the only family I had left in this world. I sat across from Mrs. Sophia, feeling somewhat uneasy. The place where I now stayed was Mrs. Sophia's refuge from the apocalypse, a small supermarket. When the apocalypse erupted, I was still in school. Luckily, I was among the first to be infected during the chaos. After accidentally drinking an expired energy drink, I awakened to consciousness. I then journeyed a long way from school back home. With my poor sense of direction, it took me a full 5 months to cover the 200 kilometers back home, wearing out the soles of my shoes. Sometimes, when I felt playful, I would chase a couple of humans just for fun, driving them in the opposite direction of the zombie troops. I found through my experiments that it was quicker to herd them than to try to explain that I was a conscious zombie. Mia, how long has it been since you washed your face or brushed your teeth? 3 days, 5 days. Okay, half a month. Mom, you know being a zombie is tough, I muttered. Mrs. Sophia, looking at my disheveled appearance, couldn't help but stand up and then began to search the shelves for wet wipes and mouthwash for me. You're only 20 and already you've had 3 fillings. Yet you dare to go half a month without brushing your teeth. What will you do when you're old? Will Mom have to feed you? She pushed me into a small compartment in the supermarket, just after I had washed my face and brushed my teeth. Mrs. Sophia immediately handed me 2 sets of new clothes. Seeing me clean and tidy before her eyes, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. Her eyes gradually moistened as she looked at me. For the first time in her life, I saw Mrs. Sophia's tears. You should know. She didn't shed a single tear at her parents' funeral, and she usually handled things briskly, like a machine without emotions, but even such a person, tough on the outside but soft on the inside, for a child with no blood relation like me, she fought with my biological father for custody, taking me away from what was essentially a ruined original family. You little rascal. Mom thought she might never see you again in this lifetime. Mom, don't worry, even if I die and become a ghost, I'll float my soul back to you, you little devil, always so glib. Mrs. Sophia broke into a smile through her tears. I opened my arms and hugged her, feeling her much thinner than just half a month ago, which pained my heart. Mom, I'm back. Just then, my stomach inappropriately growled. I touched my nose, feeling a bit sorry for myself. Mrs. Sophia's body stiffened for a moment, but she still patted my back and said, Mom will get you something to eat, too, Mrs. Sophia searched the supermarket for a long time, then dragged out a young man who was unconscious from a small compartment. Looking at the young man and then at Mrs. Sophia, I couldn't help but think, wow, in just 5 months, she found me a stepfather. Weren't we supposed to live just the 2 of us for a lifetime? And he's quite the young handsome man. I never would have guessed Mrs. Sophia had such taste. No wonder Uncle Lee next door never stood a chance. But you shouldn't just pick up men from the roadside. As the saying goes, at best they turn out to be Li Chingyin, at worst Fu Xinxing. He won't live long. You should eat him, Mrs. Sophia said, her eyes becoming sharp as she suddenly produced a fruit knife, ready to butcher him right there for me. Wait, Mom, show mercy. Just ordinary food will do. I don't eat humans. I get diarrhea if I eat humans. Not to mention toothaches and even athlete's foot. Goodness, MS. Sophia was about to feed me this man. I swallowed hard and quickly intervened. Stepping in front of the young man, I saw cold sweat on Ms. Sophia's temples and her trembling hands. She was scared too, but for my sake, she decided to use this person as my food. While I was explaining this to Ms. Sophia, the young man who had been lying behind me woke up and, ungratefully, grabbed my throat. Give me water, or I'll kill your daughter. Really, I know it's not the time to laugh, but I had already revisited all the sad events of my life in my mind. It's a joke, really, a frail man threatening a zombie. I easily broke his grip on my neck and dislocated his wrist in the process. I turned around to look at him as he fell to the ground, giving him a classic villain smile. Do you know who you're threatening? You're threatening a young and promising zombie. I rolled my grayish-white eyeballs and watched him pull a carrot out of his chest with his other healthy hand. Ms. Sophia stood by my side, holding a finely crafted handgun. Ms. Sophia and I sat down to eat. We used some rope from the supermarket to tie the man up and gagged him with cloth to keep him from shouting, placing him aside to watch us dine. I swear this was the best meal I've had in 5 months. Thanks to Ms. Sophia's efforts, I even got to eat fresh greens in this apocalyptic world, and she grew them herself. Ms. Sophia is quite a competent mother. so I'm determined to do everything I can to ensure she survives. At night, while Sophia rested, I went to find the man who managed to threaten us with a gun during the apocalypse. How about we make a deal? I'll take you back to the base, and you make sure my mom can live well once we're inside, Mr. Researcher. I pulled out a tag with his identity information on it. The man looked at me, raising his hand that I had dislocated. I kindly set it back in place and then shook his hand. Pleasure doing business. I removed the cloth from his mouth, and he used the tip of his tongue to ease the soreness in his mouth, then looked at me. You and your mother are quite something. One wants me to take care of the other for the rest of her life, and the other wants me to develop a cure for the zombie virus. Do you think I'm a lucky charm? There's a limit to making wishes. I'm just a mere worker, and that tag isn't even mine. I tilted my head, resting my chin on my hand. I have no use for useless people. Choose between lying and being thrown out to feed the other zombies. Truly, a wise man knows his own limits. This man named Austin quickly accepted his role as a lucky charm under my threats and incentives and provided me with 312 different routes to the human base. After discussing with Sophia all night, she finally agreed to our plan to head to the human base. Most of the time, Sophia would support my decisions, but this time, she was extremely reluctant. She was worried that if she went with Austin to the base, I would continue to wander outside, becoming a pitiful child without a mother. She preferred to stay with me guarding our small supermarket than spending her future in a human base. So, I assured her repeatedly that Austin was an excellent researcher who already had significant insights into the zombie virus and could surely save her ignorant daughter. Since the human base was over 700 to 800 kilometers away from our small supermarket, I didn't mind the long journey, but I couldn't let Sophia get tired, so I spent a month finding a functioning car and gathered several large barrels of gasoline from a nearby gas station overrun by zombies. After packing up a considerable amount of supplies, we set off towards the human base. Sophia was driving while Austin sat in the passenger seat navigating, and I, as the backbone of our team, was responsible for sticking my head out of the sunroof to intimidate any zombies we might encounter. We made several stops along the way and finally found a small motel before sunset. Oddly enough, there was no sign of human occupation or zombie intrusion at the motel. This reminded me of some information I had heard from a few zombie acquaintances to the east of the Way River. There is a space-manipulating Esper. This individual is well known among both zombies and humans. Unlike traditional espers who possess a tiny haven detached from this world where they can engage in leisure activities like fishing and gardening, the space-manipulating esper uses their own body as a medium to create a bounded field in the form of a motel. It's safe to say that no one could defeat him within this motel. He lures passing zombies and humans, trapping them. For zombies, he kills them outright and harvests their cores to enhance his powers. Humans, on the other hand, are robbed of their valuables and then expelled. This place is not safe. We need to leave quickly. I looked up at the motel and withdrew the foot I had set inside. What did you say? Austin, who was examining the inscriptions on the doorframe, vanished from in front of Sophia and me just after he spoke. I grabbed Sophia's hand, preparing to leave, but suddenly a gust of wind, seemingly from nowhere, blew us both inside. Hold tight around my waist, I said. I took a deep breath and reached for the doorframe, about to kick the door open with all my might. Suddenly, the warmth around my waist disappeared, and Sophia was gone. I loosened my grip, momentarily dazed. Damn, then, a heavy blow to the back of my head, and everything went black as I passed out. When I came to, the first thing I did was throw a punch at the person in front of me, making close contact between my hand and his face. The sound was loud, and the force was strong. The person's face turned red and seemed to get even more inflamed. Mia, were you really trying to kill me? I blinked and met his gaze, rubbing my hands on the blanket covering my knees. Jordan. This man was Jordan, the son of Uncle Lee who lived next door. He was the son of the proud Uncle Chase who had once harbored unrequited love for my mother. He often forced himself to tutor me to give my mom and his dad some alone time, which I remember as some pretty dark days, feeling like I had to finish all the assignments of my lifetime. But now was not the time for pleasantries. I looked at him and started asking questions. Are you the legendary space-manipulating Esper then? Where is my mom? First off, I'm not the space-manipulating Esper. And secondly, Auntie is fine. She's just temporarily in a safe area, room 3605 of this building. Jordan rubbed his cheek, which I had turned red, and a milky white light began to flow from his fingertips, healing the wound quite effectively as he spoke. The real Esper is my dad. He just had a rampage and is now recovering and asleep. Only when he wakes up can Auntie be released from that room, 3605. Wasn't that the apartment room number where Sophia and I first stayed? Uncle Lee really did love my mom. Lastly, Mia, after asking so many questions, where's your apology and thanks? I remember that's not how I taught you, he said. To be a person, he paused. To be a zombie as well. You must be polite, understand. Ouch, that hurts. Jordan bent his hands and tapped my forehead gently yet firmly as a warning. Jordan, I'm sorry. I'll make sure next time. I covered my forehead, begging for mercy. Then, I learned more about the spatial ability users from Jordan. 2 months after the apocalypse began, Jordan awakened his healing abilities, which might be related to his medical background. In any case, it was very professional. During a zombie invasion, Chase, my Uncle Lee, awakened his mutated spatial abilities in a fiercely protective moment amidst the flames. However, these powers born from desperation were unstable and often went berserk. Thus, the father and son duo decided to leave the group and live on their own. As for those rumors, it's hard to distinguish the true from the false. Moreover, I was shocked to find out that it was not 5 months after the zombie outbreak, but 5 years, yet I had no memories related to those years. Jordan suggested that perhaps during those years I was just a mindless little zombie until I recently gained consciousness. My so-called 5 months were likely the months since I became conscious, probably knowing that Miss Sophia was safe. My tense awareness relaxed. What about Austin? A terrifying expression, one that was half smile, half not, crossed Jordan's face, looking as if his garden had been trampled by pigs. Mia, you're only in your 20s, I've seen more men than you've eaten meals. That Austin, with his saintly face, is no good. He's all dark inside, especially preying on naive young girls like you. So, I had a bad feeling. That brat, I threw him out, as I pondered how to bring Austin back. A familiar voice came through the window. This wall is quite a climb. Austin clung to the window frame, looking over at us with a friendly smile. Bad news, seems like over 100 zombies are headed this way. 5. Me, a close combat zombie. Austin, a researcher whose physical strength is questionable, though he should be fit since he climbed up to the 3rd floor. Jordan, a healing ability user and single man in his prime. Chase, a spatial ability user, currently offline. Miss Sophia, a beautiful, graceful, and charming mother, also offline. This was our own combat strength. Honestly, I was the only capable fighter. Uncle Lee and my mom were well protected by Uncle Lee's abilities. According to Jordan, currently, the 3 of us young and strong were in a precarious situation. The enemy was a swarming group of nearly 100 zombies. I looked at the wardrobe in the room, stuffed the 2 men of similar size inside, and locked it. Then, I cut my wrist and smeared some blood outside the wardrobe to mask their scent from other zombies. I remembered using this method to save someone before, though I couldn't recall exactly who it was for, but it must have been a kind and lovely young girl. Don't move around here, both of you, stay hidden. I'm going to see if I can lure these zombies somewhere else. I'm a zombie, they won't do anything to me. After saying this, I didn't wait for their response and opened the door to head downstairs. The zombies were running towards me in extremely contorted postures, moving very fast. I quickly found the rotten meat we had prepared for the situation on the car we arrived in. I secured it on the roof of the car, then started throwing it piece by piece into the crowd of zombies like training dogs. What was once a chaotic crowd of zombies fell into a deadly silence. As soon as the first zombie bit into the rotten meat, the noise resumed, and they abandoned the house and ran towards me. Zombies are creatures that fear water, but their craving for food overwhelms their fear. After stepping on the gas pedal for the last time, I drove the car into a lake and escaped on foot. Thus, nearly 100 zombies fell into the water like dumplings. I looked up at the moonlight and followed the markers I had made earlier to find my way back. I really am not good at navigating. Otherwise, I wouldn't have taken so long to find my way home. I hadn't gone far when a light suddenly flashed in front of me. It was Austin and Jordan, arriving in an SUV. One in the front seat and the other in the back. They seemed to be on bad terms. Austin's cheek and left eye socket appeared to be injured. I waved to them and was about to climb into the passenger seat, but then Jordan grabbed me by the collar and put me in the back seat. Taking the passenger seat himself, Mia, don't act on your own next time. Hey, I'm fine. Look, I don't have a scratch on me. I replied to Jordan. What if something had happened? How would I explain it to you and your mom? I was about to say something when Jordan turned his head and looked straight at me. Mia, can you please stop treating your life like a joke? I understand. I looked at Jordan, feeling genuinely touched. Jordan, he really is a good person. On the way back, I learned that Austin's facial injuries were from them breaking out of a wardrobe. Of course, I was skeptical of this truth. After all, getting such symmetrical black eyes from a fall seemed unlikely. Then Jordan righteously refused to treat Austin's wounds. Austin also clearly didn't want to deal with Jordan. The 3 of us awkwardly made our way back. We returned to the hotel built by Uncle Lee, and Jordan, holding my wrist, led me inside, leaving Austin out in the cold. Austin didn't seem to mind. He pushed open the door and went straight to the second room on the right side of the first floor. Later that night, after making sure Jordan was resting, I quietly went to Austin's room. Visiting someone at night is easier the second time around, the reason being, the zombies that chased us today were somewhat strange, and I had some things to confirm with him, but since they were just guesses, I didn't plan on telling Jordan so soon. I hadn't even knocked when I was pulled into the room. Austin had prepared 2 chairs, placing them face to face. After pushing me into one of them, he sat down in the other. Mia, you must have noticed, today's zombies are very different from the usual. They're very fast. I nodded in agreement and shared my conclusion, and they're very disciplined. When I awakened my consciousness, I gained the ability to briefly communicate with the zombies. I could sense the remaining feelings of other zombies. This means that they haven't completely turned into mindless zombies. They still have feelings, experience fear and joy, and thus, they still have a chance to turn back into humans. Given a choice, humans wouldn't be their preferred meal. However, the group of zombies I encountered today seemed devoid of any signs of life. They are true killing machines. Where did you come across these zombies? Austin pulled out a sleek black box and projected an image onto the wall. It was a muddy swamp, and the zombies we were discussing were obliviously digging through the mud, reaching for the white crystals at the bottom and devouring them as if they were exquisite delicacies, their faces filled with satisfaction. The last second of the footage showed the zombies spotting Austin, giving him a sinister smile, and then chasing after him. At that moment, they were not as fast as when I encountered them. On the contrary, they were much slower than the average zombie. As the footage ended, Austin took out a white crystal from his pocket and handed it to me. I picked this up from the edge of the swamp. I took it, examining the crystal under the moonlight, unable to make sense of it before the ground began to shake. Holding the crystal in my hand, I followed Austin outside. As expected, it was probably my Uncle Lee waking up. Just as we reached the door, another tremor hit, and I stumbled into Austin's arms. Outside were Miss Sophia and Jordan, both radiating an unfriendly and hostile aura. No, it's not what you think. 7. Whether it was what they thought no longer mattered. Their looks at me were full of pity, as if I were a fallen young girl. Mia, come here, Miss Sophia spoke up and immediately pulled me out of Austin's arms. Actually, we're innocent. Mom, you have to believe me. After a long half-hour of rational and emotional explanations, Ms. Sophia and Jordan finally understood the whole situation. However, that didn't stop them from exchanging forced pleasantries with Austin while keeping me protected on the side, making sure not even a corner of my clothing was visible. For some reason, I suddenly felt like crying. Maybe it was because I had been wandering outside for too long, so this rare bustling scene was somewhat overwhelming. I blinked back the tears. Just then, the hotel, which had been shaking quite violently, flickered and lost all its disguise, revealing the middle-aged man at its heart. That was Jordan's father, Chase, a true space manipulator. In just 5 years, his hair had turned mostly white. Similar to my family's situation, Chase wasn't Jordan's biological father but his uncle. However, they had always referred to each other as father and son. Jordan's mother had died early, and his policeman father had died on duty, with no elderly relatives or others willing to help. 18-year-old Chase took in 7-year-old Jordan and raised him. Jordan, Chase's voice was hoarse. He coughed violently twice, covering his mouth with his hand as blood trickled out. Jordan and Ms. Sophia rushed to support him. Despite being aware of my surroundings, I am still technically a zombie, having not eaten much today. The blood of an ability user unsettled me. I stepped back and found a can of food in the SUV, which I opened and ate. Chase's condition had deteriorated severely, forcing us to urgently find a relatively safe place for Jordan to treat him. This meant we needed to quickly gather a substantial amount of zombie nuclei to accelerate the upgrade of Jordan's abilities. Although Jordan had collected some nuclei from zombies that had mistakenly wandered into our area, it still wasn't enough. Reluctantly, I turned my attention to the 100 mutant zombies I had tricked into the river. Whether those nuclei were usable or not, it was worth collecting and refining them anyway. But as we drove there, it was strange. The place looked as if nothing had ever happened, and even my car had vanished without a trace. We couldn't afford to dwell on this mystery any longer, as my Uncle Lee's condition was worsening rapidly. By the end, the smell of blood filled the car, making me shiver uncontrollably. Austin was driving. I was in the passenger seat, with Ms. Sophia, Uncle Lee, and Jordan in the back. How many nuclei do you have left, Jordan? I asked. 10, Jordan replied calmly, though his expression and gestures betrayed his tension. 10 nuclei, that would at most last another day. I turned my head and pursed my lips. There had to be a way. After all the trouble we went through to find each other in this apocalypse, how could we part so easily? Mia, think of something. As I pondered, my hand brushed against a white crystal in my pocket, which shimmered like a gemstone under moonlight. Instinctively, I asked Jordan for a nucleus. I tried covering the white crystal with the nucleus, thinking if the zombies could upgrade using these white crystals, might they also enhance the nuclei, even if just slightly. Before my eyes, the nucleus began to replicate. 2 became 4, 4 became 8. 10 minutes later, my arms were full of replicated nuclei. The white crystal, however, had completely lost its luster, resembling an ordinary stone. There was hope. My mind raced. No, the only issue was to confirm if these crystal stones were usable. Everyone's gaze converged on us as Austin parked the car in a relatively secluded spot. It was a risky decision. We not only faced the risk that the replicated stones, once absorbed by Jordan, might not work and could even harm his body, there were many other concerns, such as the possibility of these stones causing Jordan to mutate and put us in danger. I didn't mind, but what about Ms. Sophia? I couldn't let her be endangered. After a long struggle watching Jordan and Uncle Lee, who was barely breathing, I voiced my concerns and suggested some solutions. First, we could abandon Uncle Lee and the 4 of us continue together. Second, Jordan could stay here with Uncle Lee and the nuclei. If successful, they would both survive. If not, their fates were uncertain. Without a doubt, Jordan chose the second option. He and Uncle Lee stayed behind while I, Ms. Sophia, and Austin drove away. The atmosphere turned unbearably heavy, yet Jordan relaxed his furrowed brows and patted my shoulder. Remember how you used to love skewers? Every time you did well in your exams, you'd bug me to take you to the night market until you were too full to walk. Let's have one last feast tonight. Sure, Jordan. I choked up. Ms. Sophia held my hand, comforting me, then pulled me close, embracing me tightly. Given the limited materials we had, in the end, we hastily laid out a piece of old cloth on the ground next to the car, gathered some dry wood for a fire, and Uncle Lee used the remaining bit of his supernatural abilities to temporarily create a safe haven for us. We roasted spam and an assortment of other random items, even skewering some compressed biscuits. Everyone began reminiscing about the past, laughing and joking as if it were old times. Austin said he couldn't stand our half-crying, half-laughing faces, so he hid inside the car. I knew he did it to give us some space, opting to remove himself from the situation. At one point, Jordan went to the car to bring him some food, a gesture so uncharacteristic that it almost made me forget how incompatible those two used to be. Because our time together was so short, I couldn't bear to sleep. I just wanted to keep looking around, memorizing everything. Until the sky lightened and the sun rose, my eyes were sore from crying, my laughter ugly. Silly girl, why the tears? Just being able to meet you and end in this apocalypse, both safe and sound, is already rare. After you leave, you must be careful. It's mainly my fault for not being able to protect you all. And as Mrs. Sophia, her real name is Zoe, but considering I was born with a congenital condition, she always cooked Sophia for me to help me grow healthy, so I call her Mrs. Sophia. Then you have to take good care of yourself, Jordan. You once promised to show me the most beautiful scenery in the world. Did I say that? You did. All right, then I definitely have to survive and later take our Mia to see many beautiful places. 9. After bidding farewell to the Lee family father and son, we continued our search for a human base. For another busy half-month, the 3 of us supported each other, bickering and fussing like family. No, we were family, me, my mom, and our pet Austin. It's a pity, he's very dog-like, but unfortunately, he's not a real dog, which is somewhat disappointing. Along the way, we encountered those mutated zombies several times, and the frequency seemed to increase in recent days, as if the zombies had undergone an upgrade. After escaping a pursuit, I carried Mrs. Sophia on my back, with Austin holding a flashlight by my side. We had to abandon our car during the chase. I managed to find a clean spot in an abandoned house for Mrs. Sophia to rest properly. Mrs. Sophia was so exhausted that she soon fell into a deep sleep. Moonlight streamed in slantwise, and Austin and I sat in the light, taking stock of our limited supplies. We had only about a week's worth of food and water left. We're running out of supplies. Austin, I looked at Austin, my expression pained. I've calculated it. We should be close now. Austin took a bottle of water, drank from it, and then leaned back against the wall, bending one knee and looking out the window. Following his gaze to the bright, full moon, I covered Mrs. Sophia with a blanket while muttering, "When the time comes, remember to take good care of my mom. If she asks, just tell her I'm doing research under you. I've prepared about 100 recordings for you. Show them to her over time, but don't give it away. After a few months, tell her I got lost and died outside. She's stubborn, so it will be tough on you, Austin, in my entire life." I've never begged anyone for anything, you're the first. He turned around, his eyes dimly lit, with a rare seriousness in his tone. I mean, your family has treated me like a lucky charm for so long, fulfilling many wishes along the way, including your brother who forced me to eat expired bread as an offering. What if I told you I have a way to cleanse you, to turn you back from a zombie into a human? I stopped what I was doing, paused for a moment, and moved closer to him. I reached out and pinched his cheek, causing him pain and eliciting a sound from him. Then I pressed my forehead against his. He stepped back and hit the wall. That made me laugh. You're not feverish, so why start talking nonsense? Austin, it's normal for someone your age to be competitive, but don't joke about this with me. If it were someone else, maybe, but not when it's about me. I take it seriously. Suddenly, Austin reached out and gently pressed the back of my neck. His fingers almost as cold as my zombie skin. Mia, I'm not lying to you. I was serious, Austin. Some jokes just aren't funny. My neck hurt, and my forehead fell onto Austin's shoulder, feeling groggy. Before I closed my eyes, I heard him whisper in my ear, sleep. The next day, the sun rose as usual, but Austin was gone. I looked at the map underneath the pile of food and a necklace, and clicked my tongue. Men really are unreliable. When Ms. Sophia asked about his whereabouts, I could only chuckle and say that Austin had gone ahead to the human base to prepare for our rendezvous. Following the map, Ms. Sophia and I finally reached the vicinity of the human base just after finishing the last half of a compressed biscuit. Mom, you go ahead. I'll wait for Austin to come and meet me. With my ghostly appearance, I'd probably be declared dead on sight. Saying this, I exaggeratedly rolled my gray eyes and moved my pale arms, but this didn't fool Ms. Sophia. It wasn't that my acting was poor, it's just that she knew me too well. She could easily guess what I was thinking with just a few glances. Mia, let's go home. Mom will take you home, she said, looking at me and reaching for my hand to lead me in the opposite direction. I'm not going, Mom. We've come all this way. I stood my ground, stubbornly staring at Ms. Sophia. Mia, thus, not far from the human base, Ms. Sophia and I stood frozen in place. If you don't go now, and the patrol from the base comes, I won't be able to escape. I pointed towards the distant base as I spoke. She didn't let go, just as she had insisted on fighting for my custody in court years ago. But in the end, I managed to get Ms. Sophia inside the human base. It was the first time I had ever been physically aggressive towards Ms. Sophia. I chose the most primitive method to knock her out and left the necklace Austin had left behind on her neck. The necklace was one of the entry credentials for the human base, but no sooner had I sent Ms. Sophia into the human base than I encountered other problems. I was unexpectedly attacked by a group of zombies. It's rare for zombies to directly attack other zombies. Eventually, I managed to escape to a relatively safe little house with many minor injuries. What a stroke of bad luck. The house not only has leaks and lets in the rain, but the walls also seep water. Despite this, there are faint signs that the house is still inhabited. At sunset, I received a video call from Ms. Sophia. As I braced myself for her rebuke, Ms. Sophia merely sighed and asked how I was doing. At this moment, I must express my gratitude for the solar-powered communication device Austin left me. Unfortunately, there's only one pair, otherwise, I would have given one to Uncle Lee and Jordan as well. I panned the camera left and right, flipping it around to show Ms. Sophia that, although my temporary shelter was modest, it was advantageously located. Just then, a shadow abruptly burst in, bumping into me at waist height and causing me to stagger. The device in my hand fell to the ground and broke in half, clenching my teeth and fists in anger. I grabbed the collar of the little boy in black who had run into me. You little rascal, how are you going to compensate for this? The boy in black looked up, one eye clear and the other pale like that of a zombie. He spoke. Kill, my home, 11. I ended up taking in a child. He's about 8 years old. After 3 days of a standoff in the same room, he devoured the compressed food that fell off me and insisted on calling me Mom. Seriously, I haven't even touched a man before. What a joke. Tears of joy. I'm a mom now. JPG, Mom. I sat on the edge of the room, studying the broken device, while the child leaned against me, looking pitiful and cautious. I haven't. Don't falsely claim relationships. You can eat whatever but shouldn't speak nonsense. I covered my face, trying to escape reality. Suddenly, the child snatched the broken device from my hand. I can fix. I looked at the serious-faced child and asked, do you mean you can repair this? He nodded, and soon? A surge of peculiar energy emanated from him, and the device was restored in moments. My eyes widened in disbelief. Such incredible abilities. However, the effort seemed to exhaust the child greatly, and his head wobbled before he fell asleep against me. The next evening, I contacted Ms. Sophia on time. Mom, I miss you so much. Ms. Sophia, too, had tears in her eyes and dark circles under them, probably from several days of insufficient rest. It's okay, as long as you're fine. While I was deep in a heartfelt conversation with Miss Sophia, the child popped his head up and recognized her on the video. His first words were earth-shattering. "Grandma." I quickly covered the child's mouth, trying to remain composed. "Mom, I can explain, really." After my earnest explanation, Miss Sophia chose to believe what she wanted and asked me to take good care of her grandson, making sure he wasn't hungry. Upon hearing that I planned to nickname the child Easy to Raise, she scolded my casualness and renamed him Peace. Wishing for peace, I agreed, gently rubbing the child's head as I watched him. In the days that followed, I lived a life of mutual dependence with Peace, seeking out damaged machinery to hone Peace's supernatural abilities, contacting Miss Sophia every few days to assure each other's safety, and avoiding the increasingly bizarre hordes of zombies that relentlessly pursued me. Reflecting back, during my time with Chien, I gleaned details of his life from the bits and pieces he shared. When the zombie outbreak occurred, he was only 3 years old. His parents died trying to protect him from a high-rise fall, and amidst contracting the virus, he also awakened his supernatural abilities, surviving on instinct alone, fluctuating between hunger and satiation. In his memory, the one who provided him food was his mother. Thus, by some twist of fate, I inadvertently became his mother. No one had taught him to read or write, so his ability to communicate with me now was nothing short of genius. 3 months later, while I was fixing a destroyed car at a gas station with Peace, we encountered Austin again. This time, Austin had turned into a zombie. Like me, he retained his self-awareness, seemingly unconcerned about his transformation. He waved at me. "Mia, long time no see." I felt a pang of nostalgia. "Austin, how did you end up like this after just a few months?" He squinted and smiled, saying nothing. Then, as if on cue, he collapsed right before my eyes. For 7 days and nights, Austin slept. I watched as the zombie traits slowly faded from Austin's body, returning him to his human form. When he opened his eyes, he was greeted by my curious gaze and Peace, who was equally baffled. Peace tilted his head. Zombie, turn, human. Up to this point, everything seemed normal until Peace, ever the dramatic one, called out to Austin, "Daddy." "What, Mommy?" "Take care of Daddy." I was stunned, pointing at barely suppressing his laughter. "Austin," my heart aching as I looked at Peace. "This is a pet, got it?" Peace's eyes slightly widened, and he raised his eyebrows, much like how I would often pet him, and rubbed Austin's head. "Pet, pet." I was relieved by his teachability. Austin, helpless, chuckled softly, cleared his throat, and shifted his gaze between Chien and me, sitting up straighter as he looked at me. "Let's not dwell on these trivial matters. I found a way for you to turn back into a human." The idea of becoming human again was truly tempting. If I could turn back into a human, I could live with Miss Sophia without having to hide anymore. I grasped Austin's hand, looking deeply into his eyes. "From now on, you're my godfather." Chien, following my lead, took Austin's other hand. "Grandpa." The three of us were joyously harmonious, flourishing together. The cure was integrated into Austin's blood, and if Chien and I wanted to revert to being human, we would need to consume Austin's blood. Approximately 8 treatments over 2 months, I handed a long-expired chicken leg, which I had kept hidden, to the somewhat frail Austin. "Austin, eat more, and take good care of your health." However, there was a significant problem with this method. If we interrupted the process, we would have to start over. Moreover, during the treatments, Chien and I would gradually lose our zombie-derived abilities, Chien's supernatural powers, and my enhanced senses, athletic talents, and self-healing abilities. This made us increasingly vulnerable in a world overrun by zombies, so I chose to take it one at a time, starting with Chien. Once he fully recovered, I planned to send him back to the human base first, then myself. It would take about 4 months for everything to settle down. I calculated the days, feeling more optimistic about the future. 2 months later, seeing Chien healthy, I playfully pinched his chubby cheeks that I had helped nourish. "Once you're inside the base, you must listen to Miss Sophia. No more mischief like before. Understand?" "I understand. Chien is sensible, right? You're going to the human base tomorrow. Make a wish now. Today marks your transformation. So let's consider today your birthday from now on." I lit a half-piece of candle I found in some ruins in the darkness. The candle flickered. I saw Chien tearfully stifling his sobs, hands clasped together. "Peace, Mia must be safe." He blew out the candle. I held him until dawn, and my thoughts returned to Miss Sophia, the gentle Miss Sophia, 13. Honestly, Austin seemed a bit off after he returned. Before, he would always argue with me, full of defiance, never seeming to get things straight. Now, it was as if he had taken the wrong medication. Whatever I said, he would agree. If I pointed east, he wouldn't go west. If I pointed north, he wouldn't go south. Terrifyingly obedient. Moreover, initially, Peace showed signs of improvement after 2 attempts, but now, on what was almost my last attempt, there was still no sign of recovery, not even a change in skin color. The only change was that I began to dream frequently. In my dreams, there was a little girl who was very kind to me. The visions became clearer and clearer, but I could never see the girl's face clearly. Being straightforward is my greatest strength, so on a day with good weather, while being chased by zombies and ending up on a tree branch, I discussed this issue with Austin face to face. Austin, your recent change is kind of frightening. You couldn't possibly have feelings for me, right? Although I am indeed young, beautiful, kind, and adorable. A true gem among people and a rare steed among horses. Or perhaps, you have other motives. Never mind, if you don't want to answer that, at least talk to me about my transformation back to being human. Did you give me fake blood? I don't feel any restoration at all. I clung to the tree branch, trying my best not to fall, but as is often the case, the more you worry about something, the more likely it is to happen. I lost my grip and fell. Luckily, Austin caught my hand just in time. I looked up into his eyes. Noticing for the first time that he was quite handsome, before I could say anything, he pulled me up and seated me next to him. He didn't let go of my hand, his furrowed brows leaving me somewhat at a loss. This wasn't exactly an ideal posture for conversation between a man and a woman alone. Mia, what if I told you I really did have ulterior motives, as long as it doesn't break the law, disrupt public order, or cross my moral boundaries? I'm willing to help with whatever you need, I said. Backing up slightly against the tree trunk, I saw Austin in front of me, pushing a hidden syringe into my skin with his left hand. My eyelids grew heavy and I closed my eyes. Damn, one really shouldn't just pick up strangers from the roadside. You can never truly tame some. Then, I began to dream again. This time, the dream was deep. I was being led by a girl in the dream, running together. My head felt dizzy. She loved to tell stories about her life, her family, and the future she hoped for. I listened, endlessly amused. It felt like she was my whole world, warmly lighting up my life. Then, my world grew dim, the surrounding scenery dissolved into nothingness, and my gaze fell on the only point of light. It was a wooden wardrobe. I felt some fear, my fingertips trembling uncontrollably. I opened the wardrobe. The girl was curled up inside, looking up with a pale, weak face, her hands cradling my face. "Live on for me," she said, "if you get the chance. Please take my mother to the human base." I opened my mouth but no sound came out, overwhelmed with sadness like a flood. I finally saw the face clearly. It was Mia, the real Mia, 14. After playing human for a few years, did you really start to think of yourself as one? You are a monster, destined from the moment we created you. 15. It turns out, I am not Mia, I am Subject 03. Released intentionally by Austin, I accidentally met and bonded with a girl named Mia, after her death. I briefly inherited her appearance and memories, becoming her for a while. Before dying, Mia transformed into a zombie, so I also took on the appearance of a zombie. During my time with Mia, we learned from others how safe the human base was. Thus, taking MS, Sophia to the human base became her obsession, and then mine. The reason why the zombies started chasing me was because they detected my scent as I was taking MS, Sophia to the human base, and they attempted to bring me back. Their longevity project required a specific gene sequence from me. Austin took me to the human base and locked me in the lower levels of the lab. Leaning against a corner, I awoke from a deep dream. As he pushed me into the lab, he whispered 2 words in my ear. Trust me. What to trust? I didn't know. But having nothing left, I had nothing to lose. No, that's not right. I still had Miss Sophia. And I felt a helpless kind of anxiety, because Austin brought me back. He became a key member of the core experiment in this busy lab, which created the zombie virus that nearly destroyed the world. I always saw Austin, dressed in a white coat, his expression cold, as if we had never met. The only interaction was his emotionless recording of my physical condition outside, until a deliberate explosion occurred. Amidst billowing smoke, he carried me out. The truth was revealed. Exposed to the sunlight, the apocalypse, it ended. I saw Miss Sophia holding Peace's hand, with Jordan and Uncle Lee beside her. Spin-off the longevity experiment. Austin. My name is Austin. I was involuntarily drawn into a research project called Longevity. After graduating as a research student, I was led by a senior brother to a pharmaceutical institution. They claimed to be developing pharmaceuticals related to brain recovery, yet 2 years later, I uncovered their true intentions. Or perhaps they let me discover them on purpose. In the 3rd basement level of the research institute, I saw 03. She was curled up in a floating, medicinal solution, oblivious and fragile, under the protection of my senior colleague. The laboratory that intended to silence me ultimately spared me and appointed me as 03's caretaker, of course. This so-called protection was just a facade to keep me there. The idea came from my senior colleague. 03 had a strong ability to mimic. She liked to follow me around, calling me Austin, and she became more and more like me. Initially, I thought she might be an orphan they had picked up. just like me, only later did I learn that from the beginning, she was cultivated as a vessel, created from some special cells in a test tube. These cells originated from a meteorite that struck the Earth. Seeking immortality, they hope to extend their lives by transplanting their hippocampus and facial data into test subjects through memory transplantation surgeries. They believe that life is essentially a continuation of memories. This was their version of immortality, but they messed up. During the experiment, the special cells in the test subjects mutated, turning into a zombie virus that spread uncontrollably. Then they had an even crazier idea, beyond immortality. They aimed to control the world. Since the original cells were all infected, they planned to kill 03 and extract her cells for new research. Seeing 03 developing her own consciousness, I chose to let her go. I also managed to escape from the laboratory amidst the chaos a few months later. I met Mia and her mother. Along the way, it was noisy and chaotic, and they kept treating me like a lucky charm for making wishes. It was warm, comforting, and felt like home, somehow. This made me think of the quiet and reserved 03. I wondered how she was surviving in this chaotic world. For ordinary people, a human base was indeed a good choice, so I agreed to Mia's plan. On the way to the human base, I noticed something unusual about the zombies and discovered the crystals that should have remained in the laboratory. Mia was very interested in this, so I shared some information with her. This was the beginning of my suspicion that Mia might not be a zombie, as she showed no reaction to the crystals. As for the disappearance of the zombies later on, it was all cleaned up by the people from the laboratory, and it was the first time Mia's traces were discovered by them. Later, I returned to the research institute. I confirmed that Mia was indeed 03. I also learned that the laboratory was planning to capture her. My plan then began. I wanted to expose the truth. I might die if the plan fails, but that didn't matter. I pretended to cooperate with them to capture Mia, seeking an antidote for the zombie virus. After bringing Mia back, I started to make arrangements within the institute. Initially, I turned some of the fringe researchers, and later connected with outsiders with special abilities contacted by Jordan. After 2 years of hiding, I finally brought everything into the public eye. Everything finally ended, a new beginning. On the day Mia died, Mrs. Sophia was deeply saddened, locking herself in her room for days, not eating or drinking. It pained me so much it felt like the sky was falling, and I was incredibly anxious. But fortunately, she eventually regained her spirit. She said she needed to live well, to live on for Mia's sake. Then there was the matter of changing her name. Mrs. Sophia said that since I called her mom, from now on, I would be her daughter. So, I followed Mrs. Sophia. I said I wanted to be called Chloe. I want to include Mia in my name because she gave me a third chance at life.